Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishubhat Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotara Sata Sri Srimati Zvangres et Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishubhat Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotara Sata Sri Srimati Zvangres Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavana Ki Jai. Namacharya Siddha Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavina Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundgiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai, Sri Sri Gaunitai Ki Jai, Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev Ki Jai, Gora Premanandi. All glories to the Samadevatis, all glories to the Samadevatis, all glories to the Samadevatis. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vasavutade, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauramani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyaredatarine. Jaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Skanda, 12th chapter, sloka number 14. Evam Bahu Savam Kalam Mahatma Avichala Indriyaha Trivarga Aopayikam Nitva Putraya Adat Nrupa Asanam Evam Bahusavam Kalam Mahatma Vichalendriyaha Trivargo Payikam Nitva Putraya Dan Nrupasanam Evam Bahusavam Kalam Mahatma Vichalendriyaha Trivargo Payikam Nitva Putraya Dan Nrupasanam Evam Bahusavam Kalam Mahatma Vichalendriyaha Trivargo Payikam Nitva Putraya Dan Nrupasanam. Sri Gaunitai ki jai, Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev ki jai. Vaishnavis. Evam, thus, Bahu, many, Savam, years, Kalam, time, Mahatma, great soul, avichala indriyaha, without being disturbed by sense agitation. Trivarga, three kinds of worldly activities. Ahupayikam, favorable for executing. Nitva, having passed. Putraya, to his son. Adat, he handed over. Nrupa asanam, the royal throne. Translation. The self-controlled great soul Dhruva Maharaj thus passed many, many years favorably executing three kinds of worldly activities, namely religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of all material desires. Thereafter, he handed over the charge of the royal throne to his son. Please repeat. The self-controlled great soul, Dhruva Maharaj, thus passed many, many years favorably executing three kinds of worldly activities, namely religiosity, economic development, and satisfaction of all material desires. Thereafter, he handed over the charge of the royal throne to his son. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Perfection of materialistic life is suitably attained by the process of observing religious principles. This leads automatically to successful economic development, and thus there is no difficulty in satisfying all material desires. Since Dhruva Maharaj, as a king, had to keep up his status quo, or it would not have been possible to rule over the people in general, he did it perfectly. But as soon as he saw that his son was grown up and could take charge of the royal throne, he immediately handed over the charge and retired from all material engagements. One word used here is very significant, avichalendriyaha, which means that he was not disturbed by the agitation of the senses, nor was his sensory power diminished, although in years he was a very old man. Since he ruled over the world for 36,000 years, naturally, one may conclude that he became very, very old. But factually, his senses were very young, and yet he was not interested in sense gratification. In other words, he remained self-controlled. He performed his duties perfectly according to the materialistic way. That is the way of behavior of great devotees. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya, was the son of a very rich man. Although he had no interest in enjoying material happiness, when he was entrusted with doing something in managing the state, he did it perfectly. Srila Gaurasundar advised him, from within, keep yourself and your mind completely aloof, but externally, execute the material duties just as they need to be done. This transcendental position can be achieved by devotees only, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. While others, such as yogis, try to control their senses by force, devotees, even though possessing full sensory powers, do not use them because they engage in higher transcendental activities. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakchuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhamitansya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneswari Vrishabhanu Sudhe Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are reading from the 12th chapter, 4th skanda, sloka number 14, and the chapter entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. So it's described in this chapter that Dhruva Maharaj ruled his kingdom, that means the entire planet, for 36,000 years. So it seems like impossible to do. But at that time, Satya Yuga, people used to live up to 1 lakh years. That means 100 times what we are supposed to live in this Kali Yuga, at most 100 years. So 36,000 years means like somebody who is 36 years old in Kali Yuga. He is ruling his state or country. But the main characteristic of Dhruva Maharaj, not that he was for a long time ruling the earth planet, but the main characteristic is that he was a pure devotee of the Lord. And therefore, he was ruling the kingdom perfectly, while at the same time constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So by Lord Krishna's grace, his ruling was successful in all respects. And he was perfectly executing all the duties of a regular king. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that perfection of materialistic life is suitably attained by the process of observing religious principles. So this seems to be very difficult to understand. How, by following Dharma, one can be successful in materialistic life. But there are many examples in the history of mankind that those who were pious kings, they could rule their kingdom very nicely, and the whole country became prosperous and happy. So that means by following Dharma, one can develop the economy. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These are the 4 goals of human life. And here it is mentioned, Trivargo Payikam Nitva. That means Trivargo, 3 kinds of worldly activities, mean the 3 first steps in the human goal, Dharma, Artha, Kama. Moksha comes later on, but the 3 first steps have to be done first of all. So in order to achieve economic development, it is necessary to follow Dharma. Dharma is the basis. Just like you have buildings built by architects. So the first thing is the foundation. If the foundation is weak, the building will not remain for a long time. It will crash to the ground very soon. If the foundation is solid, then it will last hundreds of years. So the foundation of human activity is Dharma. Dharmantu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma is enunciated by the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, at the beginning of creation, I sent forth all the yagyas and the Vedic scriptures and all the demigods so that human beings can arrange for proper religious performances and achieve prosperity and be happy in their lives, ultimately achieving moksha. But that comes later on. First of all, step by step, humankind has to progress from this dharma, artha, karma, then afterwards moksha. That is also for a few. So the basis is dharma. How dharma is favorable for economic development, this is something that nowadays most of the political leaders have forgotten. But there is one great philosopher, historian called Will Durant. He is American, and he composed a history of civilizations. I don't know if you have heard of it, but it's a 30-volume encyclopedia. Very big book, 30 volumes. And all these volumes he has described all the different civilizations of the world from the remote history. So started Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, Greek civilization, Roman civilization. Then coming to the modern world, European civilization, and so on. So at the end, the last book, at the end of his study and wonderful study, he is drawing his conclusion after studying all the civilizations that have existed in human history. And his conclusion is that those civilizations, those rules or rulers who have established side by side their management of affairs, their ruling side by side with a God consciousness, these civilizations have prospered for many, many hundreds of years. So if you take a drawing, you take the beginning of this civilization, starting, and if the kings, if the rulers are following religious principles, God consciousness, it will grow and grow and grow. And then at one point, it may reach a climax. Sense gratification will be a consequence of economic development. When there is sense gratification, there are two options. Either you enjoy a maximum, or you restrain your senses and you enjoy in moderate manner just to maintain life, body and soul together. So it reaches a climate, and if a particular civilization is indulging in unwanted sense gratification as a result of economic development, it will come down. It will come down. And then that civilization will be finished. How does it come down? Internal fights, competition, aggression, sinful activities. This is a result of excess of sense gratification. So that is what his conclusion was like that. All of these civilizations have followed the same pattern based on Dharma, growing through Dharma, economic development, and then by sense gratification, then sinful life, and finished by fighting, internal disputes, and so on. Aggression, attacking other countries, being defeated, and so on. So this is a very essential point in the Vedic culture, Dharma is the foundation. And in the Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna explains in the 3rd chapter, I wanted to read a little bit, that Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that in the 18th sloka, 18, 19, 20, Lord Krishna explains, Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharan karma paramapnoti purusha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So one should act as a matter of duty. That means if one is God conscious, he will act as a matter of duty, because he will understand that if I deviate from my duty, then I'll be punished by God. So first of all, God consciousness is based on fear of God. That's the first step. One should be very fearful that if one acts wrongly, not following my duty, then certainly I'll be punished. Then I may have to go to hell. So those who are God conscious, following Dharma, they execute their duties perfectly. Here in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada says that Vedic rituals like prescribed sacrifices are performed for purification of impious activities that were performed in a field of sense gratification. But action in Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the reactions of good or evil work. A Krishna conscious person has no attachment for the result, but acts on behalf of Krishna alone. He engages in all kinds of activities, but is completely non-attached. So then, in the next sloka, our Lord Krishna tells, Karmana eva hi sansiddhim astita janaka dayaha loka sangraham eva pi sampasyan kartumarasi. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. In the purpose, Srila Prabhupada says, kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janaka was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Rama. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendentally situated. But because he was the king of Mithila, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. In this way, although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still works to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow. And this is explained in the following verse. Yad yada charati seshtas tatta devetaro jana sayad pramanam kurute lokastad anvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common man follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So this is the context here of the life of Dhruva Maharaj. Just like Janaka, he was a pure devotee of the Lord, not interested in material life. But as a king, just like Dhruva Maharaj, his destiny is that he has become the king following in his father's footsteps. He is from a royal family, so he has been given the post as a king, and that was also the blessing of Lord Vishnu. When Lord Vishnu spoke directly to Dhruva Maharaj, he told him that now you will become the king for 36,000 years. Then after completion of your rule, then you will go back to Godhead. In this way, you will never forget me. So, these are some of the kings, Janak Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and the Pandavas also, Yudhishthira Maharaj and other Pandavas. They were not interested so much in ruling the kingdom. Even if the Kaurava had given them 5 villages, that would have been sufficient. They are not hankering for a big country or ruling the whole world. Just 5 villages, because they are Kshatriyas, so they have to rule some kingdom, even as small as a village. But that was not agreeable by Duryodhana. So in this way, the Battle of Kurukshetra was also another duty to be performed by Arjuna, Pandavas, and others on the order of Krishna. Krishna understood that it is a duty of the Kshatriya to rule, and if there is opposition, they have to fight. So fighting is also the duty of a Kshatriya. There must be violence sometimes as a matter of duty. Just like, say, a surgeon in the hospital, he is not just sitting on his chair and the patients are coming, or you do like this, take this medicine, you do, and some tests will be done like that. No, sometimes operation, surgery has to be done. He has to open the leg or belly, and that is violence. So a doctor must be violent sometimes in order to cure the patient. If the surgeon makes a vow of non-violence, non-surgery, he cannot be a good doctor. That is not possible. A surgeon must be violent. Similarly, a Kshatriya, a head of state, or a leader must show some violence. Everything should be controlled. Just like a teacher, a father, they are also leaders. They are also, for the children, for the students, they have to show some strength, some authority, some type of controlled anger. That is necessary for anyone who is trying to educate. So in this way, Dhruva Maharaj, although a pure devotee of the Lord, he ruled through Krishna consciousness, following the principles of Kshatriya Dharma. Dharma means Varnashram Dharma. That is the basic principle of human life. Srila Prabhupada, in all his books, explains the importance of Varnashram Dharma for the people in general. Everybody should follow Dharma, Varna and Ashrama Dharma. Even Iskcon disciples, Prabhupada wanted, Iskcon disciples also to establish Varnashram Dharma. That means they should also follow themselves Varnashram Dharma. If a person is having this quality according to the guna, he can be classified either as a Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya, or Brahmana. Even in Iskcon also, those who are joining Iskcon, they are not pure. They have these gunas of material nature, and they have to fit in this either in the 4 categories, and then either as a brahmachari, grihastha, vanapasta, sannyas. So Prabhupada established, of course, brahmachari, grihastha, vanapasta, sannyas. This was established. But he also wanted to establish the 4 varnas. And but up to this day, it could not be implemented. But we are thinking about it, that this was one of Srila Prabhupada's objectives. He said, at the end, he was telling, I have not completed my work. 50% was done. no, chanting Hare Krishna, establishing temple worship, no, writing books. 50%, the remaining 50% is to establish this Varnashram system, so that the entire population should be included in the Krishna consciousness movement, not just a few, just a small percentage. Everyone should have the ability or the propensity to join Varnashram Dharma. It is for everyone. So, of course, the disciples who are hearing Prabhupada speaking like this, they had some doubt in mind. Saraswati Das Goswami, in a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, was asking, Prabhupada, why you are asking us to follow this Varna? No? Because we are supposed to become Vaishnavas. And Vaishnavas are not interested in these material activities. What is the use for us to try to become a very good Vaishya or a very good Shudra? No, we are not interested in becoming this type of denomination, this type of Varna. As Vaishnava, we want to become Vaishnavas. That is our goal of life. And Prabhupada answered to that, yes, certainly a Vaishnava has no inclination for materialistic living. Varnashram Dharma is for people in general, not for the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are not bound by the rules of Varnashram Dharma. But to set an example, you consider and try to follow Varnashram Dharma. Not that you will become attached to it, but to show an example so that all people will be able to understand and follow this system of religion. So that is the idea. Dhruva Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, they have no interest, but on the order of Krishna. Lord Vishnu told Dhruva Maharaj, you become king. And as a king, he has to follow the rules of Kshatriya. In this way, Varnashram Dharma is the foundation. And this is very important for everyone, even for Iskcon disciples. They should try to understand and try to implement. Because there are farming communities in the farms. No, they are trying to establish, just like Bhakti Raghava Swami. He is establishing Varnashram College. I was told yesterday that recently he got some land in Mayapur. 4 acres of land was given by the Mayapur Development Management to Bhakti Raghava Swami to develop a Varnashram College. Hare Krishna. So let us see. That was Srila Prabhupada's idea, and I hope that it will be successful, though it is not so easy because many of us are reluctant. We are not interested. We simply want to chant Hare Krishna, eat prasadam, and be happy together. But to expand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to the entire population, this type of education and Varnashram Dharma should be also established. No, I just remember also that how is it that these God-conscious civilizations have been successful? Srila Prabhupada in America, he saw the American money, coins, American coins. What is written on the American coin? All the coins, what is written? In God we trust. Sometimes see in some of the shops here, in God we trust, rest in cash. So anyway, in God we trust, that is a foundation. And Prabhupada immediately, he was happy to see this. Then he understood, he mentioned to his disciple, you see, That is the foundation of the American civilization, American society. Why they are so prosperous? They are number one in the world for economic development. Why so? Because in God we trust. God consciousness is the foundation. That is why American has grown so much from zero and now leading the world. So that was Prabhupada's remark at that time. So we can understand that Dharma must be followed by the leaders. And yad yada charati sreshtas. Whatever a great man does, common man will follow. Sayat pramanan kurute lokatsas anuvartate. Whatever example he sets, the common man will follow. That is Lord Krishna's teachings. We cannot ignore it. We cannot think that, no, just like yogis, Prabhupada mentions also, the yogis and the dhyanis, they are not interested. They want to retire and go to a secluded place and then perform their yoga system. But that is not the Vaishnava understanding. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, yesterday we were remembering some of his leelas. So one of his leelas was to go to Mayapur at the birth site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and make a vow to chant, I think, 10 crores of holy names. I will not go from here. I'll sit down here, and I'll chant Harinam continuously, 10 crores of names. And when Gokishore Das Babaji came to know that his disciple is staying there in Mayapur, not moving, simply chanting Hare Krishna in that holy place, he was somewhat, he was not willing. He considered that this is not proper for a Vaishnava who is following the footsteps of the previous acharyas. But Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was supposed to preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur considered Calcutta as hell. It's a hellish place. I will not go there. I will be in Mayapur chanting Hare Krishna. Sri Gokishore Das Babaji reminded him of his duty as an acharya. No, you need not stay here. You go to Calcutta and start preaching Krishna consciousness there. And of course, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati executed the order of his guru. In this way, he was successful ultimately. And that was how Iskcon society also grew all over the world. Not by chanting Hare Krishna in seclusion, but by preaching the message of Godhead and mixing with all types of people. So these are very important instructions. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. So Srila Prabhupada was the ideal acharya, and other Kshatriyas such as Janak Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj were ideal Kshatriyas. Similarly, they are ideal Brahmanas, ideal Vaishyas, ideal Shudras. In this way, everybody can follow according to his own propensity and achieve perfection of life. So Dharma, Artha, Kama. When it comes to karma, we have to be very careful that not to indulge in sense gratification. As a result of economic development, all these civilizations have fallen down, losing their God consciousness gradually because of sense gratification. So, in this way, we have to understand the history of mankind, the teachings of Lord Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam. All these books are teaching the same thing, that We have to follow the foundation, Dharma, and then by the grace of Krishna, everything will be successful ultimately, but we have to be very careful always not to indulge in sense gratification. So that is a teaching here. Yastu atma ratireva syat atma triptasta manavaha atmanyeva chasantustas tasya karyam navidyate. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. No duty. But for a person who has a prominent role in society, as are the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, then the duty must be performed. And then constantly performing his duty for the sake of Lord Krishna. That is not ordinary work, what he is doing. Just I remember some in the 1970s, the government slogan, because the government, Indian government, wanted to develop the country. That was the idea. But they had forgotten. They wanted a Ram Rajya without Ram. That is not a good formula. So they were propagating the idea, work is worship. Work is worship. You are too much, they were thinking, Indian people are too much God conscious. Therefore, they have given up the idea of economic development. And how can we compete with the other nations, other Asian nations, what to speak, Europe, America? How can we compete with them? We are developing country and we are at the lower rank in the world. We want to grow. So the propaganda work was work is worship. To induce people to give up worship and to simply engage in hard work for economic development and power. So that was the government motto. But work is not worship. Work is worship if work is done for Krishna without any attachment for the result. That is the difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma, ordinary work, that also should be pious work. Karma yoga is karma for Krishna. Karma yoga has can take us higher and higher to the state of self-realization. But the government leaders, even to this day also, to a large extent, as Prabhupada mentions in the previous slokas, commentaries, that they are not interested in elevating the people to the state of Krishna consciousness. They simply want people to work hard for economic development. So, in this way, we have to understand the different degrees of human activity, starting from Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Krishna consciousness, Vaishnava Dharma, that is the highest state. So gradually, to show an example to the public, the Kshatriya must be perfect in his duties, induce everyone to participate in the yagyas, and be a devotee of Krishna. And in this way, people will be happy and prosperous in all respects. And at the end of life, people will have opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Just like in every temple president is there. So I remember that in Mayapur there was a discussion. Should the temple president be a Kshatriya or Brahmana? That was a very big question. Similarly, GBCs, should they be Kshatriyas or Brahmanas? Discussion was going on. Another thing I remember that one year, the temple president, Mahamsa Swami, we were on a morning walk and coming back to the temple, Mahamsa Swami asked from Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, I heard that the kings ruling their kingdom, they are getting 1/3 of the people's sinful reactions. The king has to absorb sinful reaction, 33%, 1/3. Is it also a temple president should absorb the sinful reactions of those who are under him in the temple? And Prabhupada said, no. Why 1/3? 100%. So in this way, Prabhupada prepared us at every step to be very careful, to follow our duty very carefully. Whatever you may be, either Kshatriya, Brahmana, Vaishya, Sudra, but you must follow your duty perfectly. Even in Krishna consciousness also, everybody has to be very careful.
Then how we should know, Prabhuji, whether we belong to Kshatriya or Brahmana or what, according to quantity?
The children should be sent to Gurukul from the age of 5 onwards. And when they reach a certain age, before the age of 10, the teacher should know that this child will be a very good Kshatriya. This child will be a very good Brahmana, Vaishya, Sudra, like that. The teacher will understand the propensity of the child. Our problem is that we have done Iskcon at a later age, but in the future at least, all those children who are going to Gurukul, they should know perfectly what is their propensity, and they should be trained further in this connection. So in this way, it can be introduced in Iskcon also. Some of the disciples now in Iskcon, they are clearly having a Vaishya mentality. Just as you take Garga Muni. His nickname was Garga Mone, expert in business. He started agarbatti business in Los Angeles. In this way, he was a very good businessman. At the same time, Vaishnava. So like that, some disciples have some propensities. They can follow these propensities and follow also principles of Krishna consciousness.
But if Guru wants, the Diksha Guru wants, he can change the propensity also. No?
He can change the
propensity also.
Propensity.
Is it correct or not? I am asking. It's my doubt.
That sometimes propensity also can be changed. Vishwamitra Muni born as from a Kshatriya family. From a Brahmana family, and then adopted the Kshatriya spirit, fighting against other Kshatriyas. So a child may be having this propensity, later on he may change also, but that is an exception. Exceptions, when there is a rule, exceptions also will be there.
If Guru wants, he can change the propensity also of the person.
That can be changed, but the rule is there more important.
What he requires will be decided by Guru only.
Pardon?
What the person requires, how to use that person in which service is decided by Guru only. No problem.
The Guru will give different seva to different disciples, yes. And the Guru will understand this this disciple is very good doing this seva like that. So according to propensity, the acharya, otherwise the teacher in the school will give these different sevas. So the leader should be intelligent enough to allot these different sevas. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.